So as we work with different engagements to support the low back in this sequence, just taking a moment lying on the floor to breathe into your belly and into your low back. Find the softness of the belly, the softness of the back. It's really allowing a relaxation through the spine. The feet can go as wide as the mat for windshield wipers. The knees fall from one side to the other. You can take this slower or a little faster. It's just a soft rock for the low back and for the pelvis. Coming back to the center, draw your feet in a little bit so they're just hip width apart. As you're going to take a little tuck here of the pelvis and then a little arch. Just saying hello to the low back and to the pelvis, a small tuck and a small extension. Each of the things we do, there should be no pain. You can continue to lift up through the hips so you go towards more of the bridge and then walking down the spine one vertebrae at a time. You can inhale as you roll the pelvis off, walk up the spine. Keep grounding the big toe ball mounts. If you have a block, place it between your thighs so you can squeeze it. And then walking down the spine one vertebrae at a time. Relaxing at the bottom. Inhaling to roll up through the back, one vertebrae at a time. Keeping the legs hugging in so they're parallel and rolling down one vertebrae at a time. Okay, then connecting the arms to the movement as the hips go up, the arms go over the head for a little stretch here for the arms and shoulders. As you roll down, the arms go back down by your sides. Inhaling as you take that up, rolling up and taking the arms, extending to the elbows and the fingertips, and then exhaling as you roll down, taking the arms back by your sides. And then taking it again, connecting the breath, the movement of the upper and lower body. Again, keeping the legs hugging in, the glutes a little softer. Draw the right knee into the chest, soft in the right hip crease, and then making some circles around. You can hold on to the knee. The idea with the circles is that the hips, the back, the left leg don't move. You're just warming up the abdominals and the hips, supporting the leg to make those movements. As you hug the right knee back in, you can extend the left leg down or keep the leg bent. If you extend it, flex the foot, press the calf into the floor, and really parallel the leg. As it bends back in, returning to some circles here, going a few circles each direction. You can again continue to hold the knee or let go and let it work on its own. Make the circles small enough or slow enough so that you're not rocking in the pelvis. Everything else is really still. And then just place the foot down. We'll do that on the other side. Hug the left knee in. Make a few circles first, engaging the abdominals. Doesn't matter which way you go. Just making a few circles, just waking up to this experience. And then hold the knee into the chest. The lower leg stays bent or the lower leg extends. If it extends, again, flex the foot, press the calf, parallel the leg. This will strengthen the outer hip. Rebending it so that you can make circles again in the left hip. So a few one direction, and then when you're ready, you switch the direction. Slow, controlled. Navel draws slightly to the spine so you're engaging. Everything else is still. Just the leg and the hip moving. Hug the knee back into the chest. And then release it down. And draw the right knee back in, and then just extend and bend through the knee, extending and bending the leg upward, just a handful of times, just waking up the hamstrings here. Keep the leg up and make some circles in the ankle a few times each direction. And then take the right leg into the 4 and push the leg away. Just a little push away at the thigh and flexing the foot. So again, these are just little hellos to the hips and to the low back. Bring the leg back up, hold around the hamstring. Now you're going to push the leg into the hands, not bringing the leg closer to you, but pushing it away. And then extend the lower leg if you have room to do that for the low back. If it feels like strain, you keep the left leg bent and the foot on the ground. Just push the leg into the hands. And then rebend the lower leg if it was straight, and then we'll switch the sides. As you hug in the left leg, we're just going to straighten and bend up towards the sky a handful of times. Leave it up there, make some circles in the ankle a few times each way. Take it into the 4 over the other leg, push the thigh away, and flex the foot. Just really gentle, just a little opening out through the hip. And bring the leg back up, push the leg into the hands, interlaced around the hamstring. The lower leg, the right leg, is bent or it's straight. Keep moving the shoulders into the back. If holding the thigh is too difficult, you can use a strap. You can also still have a bend in the extended straight leg. So it's just as straight as you can get it, but push the thigh into the hands. Rebend the lower leg, hug that knee in, and then release the foot. Windshield wipers, going back and forth, letting the knees fall from one side to the other. Again, this movement can be smaller or can be slower if there's any strain in the low back. Get back into the center, bringing the legs straight up, and then make some circles in both ankles with your legs extended. So the hands can come underneath the hips if that feels like a good idea, especially if you're a little more tender in the back. Otherwise, interlace the thumbs and stretch the arms over the head. Right leg lowers away. It can be a little bit or it can be a lot. And then you're going to slowly bring it back up to the top. As you switch legs, again, left leg just goes a little bit away or it goes farther away, and slowly bringing it up. Lower, maybe on an exhale, and inhale when it comes up. This is completely quiet. Switch sides. In the low back, and the rib cage stays contained. Bring the leg back up. Switch again. So drawing front ribs to back ribs, really contained in the torso, just letting the leg move, switching sides. So that should create zero strain in the low back. Again, right and left. Drawing the navel towards the spine. You make the movement smaller if you feel any strain at all, because you want to keep the ribs driving down into the floor and the low back super neutral. Draw the knees into the chest. Okay, now the right leg goes back into the 4, threading the needle. As you're drawing the legs in closer, hold the left thigh or shin, whatever is accessible. With doing this outer hip stretch, you want to flex the right foot. It's important to keep the sacrum on the floor. So your low back is in a natural arch where it's not pressing into the floor. The sacrum, the hips are on the ground, and you're just moving your legs closer to you at the hip crease. And release that leg. And switch sides. Left leg in the 4, flexing the foot and drawing the legs in. Hold the thigh or the shin. And then checking that you're staying really neutral in the back and relaxed in the shoulders. So low back is soft, not pressing down into the floor. We're not picking the hips up or tucking in. We're keeping it really neutral. Okay, gently release it back down. And then back to the windshield wipers, letting the legs go from one side to the other. And then roll over to your side and come onto your belly. So flipping over. Stack the hands underneath the forehead. As the legs bend, windshield wipers here, your feet fall from one side to the other. Again, slower or smaller if there's any strain for the low back. As you extend the legs back down, draw the tailbone slightly under so there's a little tone in the abdomen. And start to lift the right leg up behind you and then slowly lower it down. So inhaling to lift up through the left leg and exhaling to place it down. The right leg lifts up, keep the front hip bone on the ground and exhale to lower. Lift up through the left, reach with the leg and slowly lower. This can be really small if there's any strain in the low back. So one more time on the right and on the left. And then extend the arms out in front of you. So opposites, right arm and left leg reach up. And exhale to place it down. So inhale, left arm and right leg. Keep reaching and keep inhaling. And exhaling as you lower it down. Switching again, reach. Keep the front of the hip on the ground. Lift the inner thigh to the ceiling. Lower the leg and switch. And release it down. Stack the hands underneath the forehead. Windshield wipers, bend the legs and let the feet again fall from one side to the other. And release it. Come into Sphinx. So as you come onto the forearms, elbows are underneath the shoulders. Draw the chest through. There's a lift in the navel. So there's a little more tone in the center. And then look towards the chest and round your upper back until your pubic bone just floats off the ground. And then inhale, move the chest back through, opening the gaze forward. Still a tone in the abdomen. And then exhale, round, lift the spine between the shoulder blades. And then inhale, draw the chest back through, still keeping the little bit of tone in the abdomen. Again, exhale, curl, round, let the pubic bone just barely hover off. And then inhale, draw it through. Stacking the hands back underneath the forehead. Pressing yourself up into tabletop. And just find that nice level position first. Extend back on the right toes with the leg behind you, and then reach the left arm forward alongside the ear. You can stay right here or start to float the right leg off the ground. So that's dependent on your stability and that there's no pain in the low back. The foot can stay down. Just push the floor away. Front ribs are going to draw up into the back ribs. It's more length than height. As you switch sides, just come onto the left toes with the leg extended back. Reach the right arm forward, hold it there, or float the leg straight off and reach more behind so the heel extends and you feel the long line through the body. Drawing the front ribs into the back ribs. Releasing both sides down. Rounding the back, cat back. Exhale, look to the navel. Inhale, drawing the chest through. Open up. Chest and gaze lift. And come back to the center. Ear and hip move towards each other to the right, squeezing the side body, and same over to the left. Coming back to the center, sit up to the heels and place one hand on the belly and one hand on the low back. And here just breathing into both hands, sitting up nice and tall. If it doesn't feel good to be sitting on the knees, put the blanket underneath the hips, so between your feet and the knees, or even take a different seated position. This can also be done in a chair, just sitting upright, breathing into both the front hand and the back hand. Okay, so we're going to move with the right leg forward into high lunge to work some of the isometric contractions. You're going to pick the toes up on the front foot, so the ball mount is down, and feel the ball mount drag towards the heel on the front foot, and feel the heel drag towards the back of the mat. That drives the hip back. Squeeze your legs towards the midline. Inner thighs hug in and lengthen through the chest and to the top of the head. I'm on fingertips, but you can also have hands on the blocks. Slowly lower the back knee down. So low lunge. If you need to keep the hands down, that's fine. Otherwise, hands up on the front thigh. Dropping down to the right hip, lift the left arm up so that we're just lengthening the left side of the body more. Isometric contractions here as dragging the front foot towards the back of the mat. Dragging the back knee towards the front of the mat. So the legs are hugging towards each other. They're dragging towards each other within that isometric contraction. And then release the hands back down. So you can step forward or step back. We just need to change sides. So the left leg is forward. In the high lunge on the fingertips or hands on the blocks, lift the toes on the front foot. Drag the front foot back. Isometric contraction. Drag the left hip back towards the back of the mat. Squeeze the legs in towards the midline and lengthen through your back. This is the pose. Okay, lower the back knee down, low lunge, bring the hands onto the front thigh, dropping down to the left hip. So I'm using my hand to give myself the action that the hip stays down. Right arm extends up so the whole right side of the body is really long. As I'm doing the isometric contractions, the front foot drags back, the back knee drags forward, keeping the body really stable, breathing into the whole body so that I'm not back bending. I'm drawing front ribs to back ribs. And then bring the hands back down. Stepping back, plank pose. In the push-up position, you can also do this on the knees. This is a long pose here. We're just going to bend the right knee in the plank as if you were going to put it down, and then bend the left as if you were going to put it down. Stay long through the crown of the head. And downward facing dog, lift the hips up. You can bend and straighten through the legs here, one and the other. Lowering one heel and the other. Bending both knees for the pose, heels up high. Lift the sitting bones up more behind you. So with the legs bent, easier to lengthen through the back. Bring the hands to the feet. As you take a forward fold, you can bend the knees. If taking the forward fold is too much, come more to this upright position with the forearms on the thighs, with the feet hip width or even wider. In that position, place the hands on the outside of the knees and push your thighs out and push your hands in. So they're resisting each other. This should widen the hips and then standing up. Okay, bring the hands to the heart, to Anjali Mudra, finding your midline. Just float the right knee up, flexing the foot. Extend the left arm alongside the ear towards the ceiling. Right hand is maybe on the right hip, reminding the hip to stay down, just like in the low lunge. Imagine that the right foot is sitting on a chair, so there's weight in the leg. And as you switch sides, bring the hands back to the heart and float the left leg up. Flex the foot. Imagine your foot's on a chair, so there's more of a downward energy. Drop the left hip so your hips just stay level, right arm to the sky. Just feeling very organized and like Tadasana, nice and tall and stacked and quiet in the body. Releasing the foot down, bring the hands back to the heart, Anjali Mudra to your center. So imagine there's a block between your thighs and hug into the block. So the inner thighs, the inner legs hug inward. Arms up to the sky. Continue to squeeze in. You can put a block between the thighs to make that happen. For the side bend, bend your knees. Grab the left wrist and side bend to the right. With the knees in a really good bend, the pelvis is much softer. It's in a much more relaxed position to accept the side stretch. Grab a hold of the other wrist, take it over. Side bending to the left. And back up to the center. And hands to the heart. Again, imagine a block between the thighs if you're not using one. give yourself that squeeze. So continue with the inner leg work, tree pose, Vrikshasana. You can take the right foot or the left foot, doesn't matter which side you do first. The foot can be low, below the knee, or it can be high up into the thigh. Either way is fine. What you want to feel is that your hips stay level. So the bent leg, hip, the sitting bone is drawing down, and the leg is widening. But when the knee goes wider, the whole pelvis doesn't go with it. Just the knee widens. Hands can be at the heart, or you can stretch the arms over your head. So feeling the deep lateral rotators and the hips working to widen the bent leg without everything going with it, without the pelvis going with it. Get taller through the top of the head as your arms go back wide and hands come back to the heart for the other side. Again, you can have the foot low for the other side or bring it up to the inner thigh. Seeing if you can get those hips again to just stay very level and to be facing forward. So the front of the pelvic bones are facing forward. The leg is widening using deep lateral rotators. They're underneath the glutes. They rotate the leg open a little bit more, so you work from those muscles. And then the back is supported as you extend maybe the arms over the head to breathe into your back. And you might even find, just like we did in the kneeling, that you have one hand on the belly and one on the low back. And maybe you want to do the tree pose like that, bringing more attention to breathing into the back side of the body. The arms come all the way back down, hands to the heart before you release the foot. Okay, separating the feet nice and wide on the mat, and then turning the right toes out, working towards warrior two in the legs. We're just going to pump it. So you're bending the right leg to find the opening of the thigh and then extending the leg. Every time you bend and straighten the leg, we're seeing that again, the front of the pelvis is facing open, so are the shoulders. And as the leg bends, the hips stay level. There's no tilt in the pelvis when the leg bends. Check out that you can see the big toe to the inside of the knee when the leg bends. There's weight still in the back leg, so there's a strong resistance from bending with the back leg, so that as the front leg bends, there's a pull between the two legs, which keeps you in the middle instead of just collapsing to that leg. Now taking the arms out, this is a prep for triangle pose. Reaching out over the right, not going very far, just reaching so you can angle the hips. And then inhale, bring it right back up. Exhale as you lean forward, you're letting the right sitting bone move towards the left inner thigh. And inhaling to straighten. You can do this with more of a bend in the front knee or the right knee if it's unstable in the knee. Reaching out, and then inhale, coming right back up. Exhale, reaching out. Now really lengthen the underside of the torso, the right side. And inhale to bring it back up, hands onto the hips. So we're going to switch sides. Over the left toes. For the warrior two, prepping, stack level of the hips, bending of the left leg with the knee going wide, and then just re-straightening. Checking that the hips stay level or pelvis stays level, bend the left, see the big toe on the inside of the knee, and when you're ready, re-straighten the leg. You can do this with the breath, exhaling as you bend into that left leg, strong through the back leg. Inhaling as you lift it back up. Again, bending it, grounding, big toe ball mount. So on the other side, it was harder for me. On this side, it's more rooted, big toe ball mount. Again, bending and straightening. Staying very level in the pelvis. And extend the arms and working that first part of triangle pose. Reach out with the left arm, lengthen the left side of the body. Let the hips tilt. If you need to, a little bit more bend in the left leg. Otherwise, it's straight but not hyperextended. Still have to hold 5% bend in the knee. Extending out, reaching, and then inhale, bring it back up to the center. Exhale, reach it out, crease at the hip, big hamstring opener. Inhale to bring it up. Again, leaning over, long line, pushing with the back foot, and coming back up. Hands onto the hips, flip your feet back into parallel, and then step to the top of the mat. Just give the legs a little shake out. There's a lot of work for the outer hips. So setting up for Eagle Garudasana, bend the left leg. Cross the right leg on top of it. Now, the toe can come all the way down to the floor if it needs to, or onto a block, right on the outside of the foot. Otherwise, as it's wrapping, if your foot doesn't wrap around the calf, just stick the foot to the outside of the left shin. And take the arms wide, goalpost them, and start to pin your forearms towards each other with your palms facing each other. You can stay with that, or if you take the bind of the arms, the left elbow is on top, interlacing the hands or wrapping the hands. So really keep squeezing your thighs together and squeezing your shins together. Inner thighs squeezing, outer shins squeezing. Gently as you release it, and as you relax your arms, you can take the arms all the way up on the inhale, and then exhale, bring the arms down. And setting up for the other side, bend your right leg and hook the left leg over it. The toe taps the ground, the outer shin, or hooks. Goalpost the arms, and then bringing the whole forearm, elbow, wrist towards each other in front of your face, palms facing each other. Stay with that, or take the bind of the arms, or the wrap of the arms, with the right elbow on top this time. Breathe into your back. Settle into the midline of the body with the breath. Squeeze the inner thighs and squeeze the shins. Gently releasing the pose. Inhaling, you can sweep the arms up over the head to clear the shoulders or just shake them out. And then bring the hands down. Okay, setting up for a pyramid, Parsvottanasana. Step the left leg back. Square the hips towards the top of your mat. So you move the pelvis to face forward like headlights facing forward. Bring the front ribs to the back ribs so you're engaging through the center. Right hand is on the hip. Left arm up to the sky. Again, this is just a prep, moving in and out. You're going to bend the right knee if you need more stability for the knee or the low back. Reach out by hinging at the hips. The body stays really long and straight, not folding or curling. And then inhale, press with the back foot and bring yourself back upright. Right hip is drawing back in space. Keep rooting the back heel so you're only as wide in the pose as you can keep the back foot down. Reach out, lengthening from the hip to the fingertips, and then one piece coming right back up. Right hand is on the hip, guiding the hip back. So the whole time you go forward, again, and the whole time you come up, the right hip is drawing back, keeping the square on the way down and on the way up. Again, reaching out and down, connecting it to the breath that makes sense for you as you bring it forward by hinging at the hip and pushing with the feet as you bring your body back upright. Bring the hands onto the hips. You're just going to turn to the other side of the mat by turning your feet around. Turning the back toes in. So the back foot is like on a 30-degree turn out. The back heel is rooted. Ribs in, left hip back, right arm to the sky. So leaning forward, hinging at the hips for the extension. This can be a very small movement forward or a bigger movement, but really long through right side of the body, drawing the left hip back, standing up. You might want to try exhaling to go forward, front ribs to back ribs. Inhaling to come up so that there's a lightness, almost like a float, that comes up with the inhale. And you can try the breath in the reverse as well. Again, as you go forward, maybe you're having the left knee bent. If the leg is straight, it still has 5% bend so that you're engaging through the quadriceps, bringing it back up. Lowering down, left hip draws back, spine stays super long, neck stays long, arm and ear stay in alignment, and coming back up. As you turn it back to the middle, hands onto the hips, and then step up to the top of the mat. Standing nice and tall as the arms go up over the head, squeeze your legs in towards each other. So hip width apart. Utkatasana, start to sit down into your imaginary chair. See that you can wiggle the hips a little bit. So there's space, there's breath in the back and in the pelvis, so there's not tension. The arms can be wider than shoulder width apart if extending the arms too narrow doesn't feel good. The knees and the toes are equal in their distance from each other. Placing the hands onto the thighs if you need as you come all the way down. Step the left leg back, step the right leg back for plank. In the plank, long through the top of the head. Strong through the body. Just a little bend in the right knee, just a little shift of body weight. And straighten it. And then bending of the left knee, just a little bend without leaning back. And straighten. Downward facing dog. You can bend the knees, lift the sitting bones higher, lift your heels higher, to get more length from into the back. You're bringing the feet maybe about halfway in on the mat. Again, with your feet wide, bend your knees, push your hands and your thighs into each other to widen through the hips, pushing the hands and the knees into each other. And then as you come up to stand, we'll take the right leg in the floor for the outer hip stretch. As you're reaching forward, I'm going to reach out and just stretch forward with the arms, but you can place your hands on the wall, on a tabletop, on a chair. The idea here is to keep the length, but if holding it without something to grab onto is taxing on the back, you want to place your hands on something and then lean your hips away from what you're holding. Coming back up, knee to the chest, and then bring the hands to the heart to switch sides. Left leg into the floor, reaching out, and as you sit back with the hips, place the hands on something or extend it and hold the balance. But flex through the left foot. And feel this long line of the body supported front ribs to back ribs, breathing into the back as well as the front. You can also goalpost the arms if keeping your arms forward is too much on the shoulders. Coming up, draw the knee into the chest, and then release it. Okay, at the top of the mat, and then step wide, open. Turn the right toes back out. So returning to warrior two legs. And this is going to be side angle, Parsvakonasana. So you have warrior two legs, but triangle in the hips. So draw the front thigh back. I'm using the forearm to drag the skin of the thigh back. Move the right hip a little more under you. Lengthen the sides of the torso so you're really even instead of collapsing on the underside. Left hand can stay on the hip or extend the arm over the head. So things to consider, same as you worked in the warrior two and the triangle, strong supportive back leg. The right leg is bending with keeping the knee wide. The right hip drawing under. Long through the right side, the underside of the torso. The shoulders on the back. Really keep driving the right knee wide and the right hip under. That gives you that strength in the outer hip. And as we come up, setting it up on the other side, just switch the feet, bend the left leg, tilt the hips like triangle, left sitting bone to the right inner thigh. It's external rotation in the bent leg. So rolling the inner thigh to the outer thigh. Back leg is resisting, yeah? So there's a split between the legs. Sides of the body nice and long. Right hand can stay on the hip or the arm can extend over the head. But move that lower shoulder into the back. So instead of letting the lower arm just kind of collapse, you're going to use it to pull the thigh back, the skin of the thigh back. Keeping the underside of the body long. Draw the left hip under yourself more. Left knee wide, left hip drawing under. Right body, underside, nice and long. Root the feet to come up. Turn the toes into parallel. Hands on the hips. Turning the right toes back out. So for the full triangle pose, tilt of the hips, reach out, get the underside long, place the hand lightly on the shin. External rotation is still happening in the thigh, keeping the hips open. So just like in the last pose, you want to keep the knee cap facing the same direction as the second toe, engaging the quadriceps, a slight bend more in the right knee if you need to. The underside of the torso, the right side, really long. Both shoulders on the back. The gaze is down, out, or up, whatever feels more comfortable in the neck. Push with the back foot to stand up. Hands can come on the hips as you switch to the other side. Arms extend, tilt the hips, and reach out, underside really long. Lightly place the hand on the shin. Keep that side long. Engage the quadriceps. The gaze is fine if it's down, if it's out, or if it's up, but keep the chest open. Try not to collapse forward. You're trying to find a wall behind you, and there's also a wall in front of you. So draw the left hip under. Inner thigh to outer thigh. Keep rooting big toe ball mount. Keep strong in the back leg. Push with the back leg and stand up. Hands onto the hips, feet in a parallel. And then release it as you step back to the top of the mat. Shake your legs out. Bring the hands to the heart. Drawing the arms up, hug your legs in as if you're holding onto a block and squeeze really hard those legs together. Use a block if you need to as you're taking the forward fold. If this is okay for the back, you're doing this, but you're squeezing in the entire time, staying long in the back. Your left leg is stepped back and the knee comes down, returning to the low lunge. So the squaring of the hips, dropping the right hip, hugging in with the legs towards each other, those same isometric contractions. Left arm to the sky for the twist. So that arm goes to the outside of the leg, stacking the hands and the forearms for the push. You can keep the back knee down or you can straighten the back leg. If you straighten the back leg, lift the shin all the way. Even though it's harder in some ways to have the back leg straight, it will force the body to work a little harder and hugging in because you've taken the knee off. So you might feel the actions a little bit better. Chest is open. Keep pushing the arm and the leg into each other equally. As you release it, bringing the hands down and stepping back into the plank. Long through the top of the head. Just a slight bend in the right knee again and straighten. And a slight bend in the left and straighten. Downward facing dog. Bend the knees, lift your hips up. Stepping the left foot forward, lower the right knee for the low lunge twist. First, square the hips, hug in with the legs, right arm to the sky. You're going to exhale to take that arm to the outside of the leg, stacking the hands and the forearms. You can have the back foot flat or the toes curled under, but if you're going to straighten the leg, you want your foot set up. And then slowly push that back leg straight by lifting the shin. Otherwise, keep it down. Arm and leg press into each other, really working the hug of the legs towards the midline here. The square of the hips, left hip drawing back. and chest line opening. So breathe into both sides. Breathe into both sides of the rib cage. Release your hands. Step it back, plank pose. A slight bend in the right knee and straighten. A slight bend in the left and straighten the legs. Both knees come down, lowering down really slowly to the floor. Elbows are going to draw in one piece down. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, all the way down. Stacking the hands under the forehead, bending the legs for the windshield wipers, letting the feet gently fall from one side to the other. Release the legs back behind you. Lifting up through the right leg, reach it back and keep the front of the pelvis on the floor. Exhale to lower. Reach and lift through the left. Doesn't have to be very high. And exhale to place it down. Just lifting the upper body, your hands stay attached to the forehead, your feet stay on the ground, lifting the chest and the head and the arms. Sides of the neck are soft, so drop the shoulders. The tailbone tucks under to help you with that. Lower it down. Draw the tailbone down. Lift up through both legs behind you and try to stay quiet in the upper back. Reach more through the legs and lift your inner thighs more. Try not to let the legs go wider than hip width. Release them down slowly. Everything comes up, hands stay attached to the forehead, reaching back through the legs and up through the upper body. Breathe a little bit more in the rib cage instead of in the belly. Gently place it down. Okay, flipping over onto your back. Draw the knees in, hip width apart with the feet. And as you're ready, lifting up into a bridge. Walk your shoulders underneath you and stretch your fingers towards your heels. Turning the palms up and rolling the thumbs open is helpful for getting the rotation in the shoulders. Squeezing the shoulder blades together underneath you. If you have a block, you can sit on the block at the pelvis, not the low back, and do this as a supported bridge instead. Keep breathing into the puff of the chest so that we're keeping the rib cage really open and the throat soft, so the work is in the upper back, not in the neck. Gently lower it back down. Draw the legs up towards the ceiling. Now you can do this as legs up the wall, so moving to just bring your legs onto the wall with your hips as close to the wall as you can. So instead of them having to hold themselves up, you just take this whole pose and you put it with your legs against the wall. Flex the feet and spread your toes. If you want to do this as an active pose, doing it like this, holding the legs up, just as straight as you can get them. If this causes any strain in the low back, do this as legs up the wall with your legs against the wall, hips against the wall. Now first doing this as an active pose, so we're flexing the feet, we're spreading the toes. This is in an act of giving yourself an inversion where you're reversing the blood flow here. You can stay, if you're at the wall, for legs up the wall for Shavasana. And when you take that as Shavasana, you can relax your feet, but keeping your legs up the wall. And so stay there for the next handful of minutes to really rest into the pose. Otherwise, if you want to change the posture, lowering your feet back to the floor for a few windshield wipers before we set up for Shavasana. So again, you can just stay at legs up the wall. Otherwise, if you're taking the windshield wipers, releasing through the back, and then when you're ready, just extending the legs along the floor for Shavasana. Another option here is to put your legs up on a chair or the bed or a couch. Here I'm using 2 blocks and a bolster to create a little shelf for the legs, but if you want to use whatever you have at home to just kick your legs over so your legs are in a right angle. This position for Shavasana is very relaxing for your pelvis, for your psoas, your hip flexors, for your belly. And so this is where we'll rest for a few minutes. Relax your belly, relax your gaze, relax your body. And as we're exiting the pose, draw the legs in and roll over to the side, to the right or the left. And just take your time as you're ready to sit up. And once you're seated, just take a comfortable seat and take the hands to the heart, Anjali Mudra. As you bow in, just thank yourself for your practice. Namaste.